Hello, and welcome back to the AJC Virtual Global Forum. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ben Plotkin. I'm a member of American Jewish Committee's Executive Council. For those of you who are new to AJC, Global Forum is the premier global advocacy event of the year. Though we wish we could be together in person, we're delighted to gather virtually to examine critical issues facing the Jewish people in Israel. To me, the mission of AJC is deeply personal. I'm the son of a refugee from Nazi Germany. I can remember my mother, of blessed memory, supporting AJC in some small part, given her limited resources, because the loss of her youth reminded her of the need for organizations like AJC. Today, I have the means and capacity to do so much more for this organization. And my wife, Sheila, and I have more reason to do so. Our son, daughter-in-law, and our 2 grandchildren live and flourish in Jerusalem. Need I say more? AJC's work to strengthen the place of Israel in the community of nations has a direct effect on my family and me. I'm proud to be chair of AJC Jerusalem. I feel that our efforts to help ensure that my family and the Jewish state continue to thrive. I'm particularly looking forward to today's program. You'll get to experience some of the many components in the new era of the Abraham Accords. You'll learn how AJC has been and continues to play a unique role in this work. AJC will forever be there to support Israel. Beginning 30 years ago, we believed the Middle East could be reimagined. For these past 3 decades, that's precisely what we've tried to help achieve. Looking ahead, reimagining what's possible will continue to define who we are. Join us in these transformative efforts. Visit ajc.org. Thank you for being with us today. Enjoy the program.
Hi, my name is Narda E. Alcorn. Being Jewish in America is a source of enormous joy and pride for me, even though I continue to encounter members of the Jewish community who question my authenticity. I am Black, queer, married to a white Jewish woman, and parent to 2 adopted Black Jewish children. I am a proud member of 2 shuls, one unaffiliated and one a member of the conservative movement. My children have attended Jewish day school all their lives, and they eagerly await returning to Jewish camp this summer. My rich Jewish life exists with my identity as a Black woman. I am a descendant of Mississippi and Arkansas slaves, and I continue to fight to be seen and treated as an authentic member of this country that my ancestors helped to build. I have been approached in synagogues where I've been visiting and asked if I am sure I'm in the right place. I've been told that I can never really be Jewish because I am Black. I have been looked upon with amazement after chanting Torah or Haftorah. I revel in challenging the perception of what Jewish means in America. And every Friday night, as I bless my children, I pray that the path is a little easier for them. I am a proud American Jew.
Your Excellency, it's so good to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
See you, Jason. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Your Excellency, when we spoke in person last September in Washington, just before you signed the Abraham Accords at the White House, you envisioned growing regional cooperation while recognizing that the course ahead was not going to be a straight line, that significant challenges would remain. You made it clear that the Kingdom of Bahrain firmly supports a negotiated solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict with the creation of an independent Palestinian state, and that this commitment is unwavering. You also made it clear that there would be advantages in openly engaging Israel to help advance regional peace and cooperation. How and why did Bahrain make this historic decision? And how do you see the people of Bahrain benefiting from this engagement? And what do you foresee going forward?
Well, once again, thank you, Jason. Thank you for the invitation and to participate in this forum. Absolutely right. You know, Bahrain's decision to sign the Abraham Accords is firmly based on our belief that they represent a step towards resolving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and really not away from it. We took the view that from decades of seeing confrontation, seeing non-engagement did not get us to anywhere. And we believe that the path of cooperation, the path of dialogue, the path of closer, really, negotiation based on the two-state solution can lead to resolving the conflict. So we decided to really pursue the path of coexistence, the path of interdependence, the path of cooperation to achieve peace and yet resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, because we believe it is the bedrock for any peace to be achieved, is to really tackle this issue. So our position is firm in supporting the Palestinians to reach a solution in cooperation with the Israeli, and we hope that the path that we have pursued will really help in achieving that. And it's also, we have Bahrain, even in the year 2019, we have conducted Peace to Prosperity workshop. It is sending that message that after 70 years of conflict, let's explore other ways of reaching peace. Jason, the region really in need for peace. I think the pandemic has shown us how small the world is and how we can go into an isolated islands in a spur of a moment when we are threatened by pandemics such as the COVID. But the main lesson was that we need each other, that we need to cooperate. And we know that the world security and stability needs the security and stability and the safety of the Middle East. The Middle East is vital. After a decade or so of conflict, we have now millions of young people who have been denied of education, they have been denied of shelter, they are even denied of clean water. We all need to work together. We all need to provide the environment that can create hope for these people. And I think Bahrain, being a country that and a nation that believe in dialogue, that believes in respecting the others, that believes in coexistence, that we believe in cooperation, and that's what His Majesty the King has indicated and practiced in his doctrine and in his decision to pursue peace with Israel. You're absolutely right. It's not a straight line. We know there is a lot of challenges along this path, but with trust, confidence, and partnership, I think we can convey the right messages, and we can just move along this new approach, and hopefully that the people of the region can see the benefit. And in particular, the Palestinians and the Israelis can see the benefit of the peace.
Indeed. Excellency, though, for Bahrain itself, for the Kingdom of Bahrain, for the people of Bahrain, do you see benefits, very practical benefits, growing out of this cooperation with Israel?
Definitely. We have, first of all, the most important benefit is that the values of the Bahrainis are being really recognized. We are sending the message from a small nation saying that peace is the way forward. By living in a country, in a region that will enjoy stability and security and give hope for our brothers and friends, especially the young people, to have a kind of prosperity or development, that's by itself is a gain to all Bahrainis, let alone partnership with the Israelis and in the different areas of technology, commerce, trade, tourism, health. We've just seen how important it is to cooperate in the areas of health. Unfortunately, that the last year or so, because of the pandemic, we have been denied or at least postponed the programs for tourism and for interaction. When we met in Washington, we were looking forward to really receive you here and see how people to people can interact and really create the environment for a better business relationship and also tourism, health, etc. So I think the benefit is there. And from the public sector, we need to create, and I'm working with my counterparts and also other ministers working with their counterparts to create the environment so that whether it's legal, legislation-wise, or interaction-wise, to create that environment where business to business can interact and people to people can interact in a safe, secure, trust environment that we can really together move towards a better
clearly the gates are opening.
Areas. Yes, absolutely.
Your Excellency, let me turn in a different direction. The Jewish community of Bahrain, the only indigenous Jewish community on the Arabian Peninsula, is small but respected and well integrated in Bahraini society. A synagogue in downtown Manama has now been restored and outfitted. The community is the base for a newly formed association of Gulf Jewish communities. And a range of interfaith initiatives has been launched by His Majesty King Hamad. What role do the promotion of interfaith dialogue and cooperation and support for the kingdom's Jewish and other minorities play in defining the character of Bahrain today? And what is your response to those who would use or abuse religion for extremist ends?
Well, thank you. You're right that Bahrain has a deep-rooted, really, culture of religion and religious dialogue, based on, in part, on our long, really, history as a trading center, which for hundreds of years really has brought together East and West and in a diverse community. This is what we be living in, and that's why we believe in coexistence. I believe our capital Manama is the most religiously diverse city in the GCC and probably in the entire world, with numerous faiths, places of worship to be really located and found in a very small area, even less than 1 square mile. You will find a synagogue and you will find mosques, church, temples, all in the same very small area. And that's why I think we are unique in this, but it is really deeply rooted in our character, in our beliefs as Bahraini. Our Jewish community, which has called the kingdom really as home, been here for more than a century. And it's really, we had very successful, actually, it's hard to see the difference.
Yeah.
They are Bahrainis, and sometimes we don't know whether they are really Jewish or not. We're just friends, and we're living together, and I think we are really we made, and we still continue to make an example and role model of coexistence and working together and living together side by side. As you know, that our ambassador to Washington, DC, once was a Jewish Bahraini.
Very dear friend.
Yes, so I'm convinced that this interfaith dialogue that we have practiced and continue to have cooperation is one of the really defining characteristics of modern Bahrain, and informs our approach to both national and international issues. In recent years, for example, we have seen the establishment of the King Hamad Center for Peaceful Coexistence, which plays such an important role in promoting interfaith dialogue. The 2017, I believe, Kingdom of Bahrain Declaration, setting out the principles of religious tolerance and mutual respect. Also, I think in the year 2020, just last year, an MOU with the State Department on combating anti-Semitism was signed.
Yes.
Including acceptance of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. We are now started talking with the United Religion. So it's this is what we believe in, and that's what we practice. And this is the reality of modern Bahrain. A long history and deep culture of interfaith dialogue and respect, which we are really building on today to promote these same values across really the region, and will continue really to do so.
Excellency, let me turn in a different direction and close out this conversation talking about Bahraini-U.S. relations. Excellency, the United States and the Kingdom of Bahrain enjoy a long-standing strategic partnership with the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, based in Manama, with our countries working together on freedom of navigation in the Gulf and the wider region, and the fight against terrorism and other security challenges. Among those challenges, of course, is the constant threat posed by the Iranian regime. How would you assess that threat, and what advice would you and your colleagues, what advice are you and your colleagues offering to Washington as it pursues negotiations over a possible return to the 2015 Iran nuclear deal?
Well, Jason, you are completely correct that Bahrain and the United States have enjoyed a very healthy, long, close partnership that has proved its value and safeguarding the region, and it was one of the reasons that why Admiral Kraut, who was the Middle East Force commander then, and also the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he said in his autobiography that pound for pound, Bahrain is the best ally in the recent history to the United States.
And by the way, I think you're celebrating the 50th anniversary of that diplomatic relationship this year.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the military is even longer.
Yeah, yes.
So, and it's also that partnership why Bahrain was designated as a major non-NATO ally.
Yeah.
To the of the United States, and in recognition of the importance of this partnership, and why this was really followed by an FTA was also signed with Bahrain. Bahrain is blessed really with a king who stands by his words and agreement with full commitment. We were cooperating even though sometimes we didn't have agreements. It was just directives, coming direct from the king to really provide, because he believes that the boys and girls of the Fifth Fleet are here and to support peace and stability in the region. And we want to always provide what is needed to accomplish their mission the most, in a way, whether it's to simplify it or ease the execution of their mission. You are right also about the sheer challenge from the Iranian regime. It is a challenge which, as I am sure you are aware, goes far beyond the issue of Iran's nuclear program, to include, for example, the missile development, and in particular, its support for proxies and militias that interfere in other countries. In Bahrain, we have first-hand experience in what I'm alluding to. So it is a challenge. It is an Iranian challenge that we need. Since 1979, Bahrain has probably missed some opportunities and missed also at the same time missed no opportunities to attack this and opportunities to really make this region a more peaceful region, that where we can coexist and work on interdependence together to make the region a safer place for all. There's the extremist groups. Also, we need to ensure that they will not carry out any attacks, and there is also the wider international propaganda campaign that the Iranians use the media for, and NGOs and other politicians Recently, our Coast Guard and law enforcement agencies have seized numerous stashes of weapons, munition, explosives, detonators, and other bomb really making equipment. Our message, really, which I think is one of shared by our friends in the region and other countries in the region, is that we cannot just focus on the nuclear issue. We have to address the totality of the challenge, of the Iranians' challenge, and the counterproductive, really, behavior across the Middle East, and put in place really effective safeguards to ensure any new deal does not further facilitate, let's say, the advancing of these activities. We need the international community to convince Iran that it cannot prosper by trying to subvert or undermine other countries, and that the interests of Iran and its people are best really served by being a responsible regional and global citizen. My hope is really that this message will be heard. Again, it is a message of peace from a nation of peace, believe in peace, and I believe that the administration shares some of these concerns.
Your Excellency, thank you. We have heard your message. It is consistent with other messages that we have heard across the region. We take it very seriously, and we will continue to convey that message and our message of concern in our advocacy going forward. Excellency, thank you so much for taking part in the 2021 AJC Global Forum. We are so eager to be back in Bahrain. We look forward to seeing you very soon.
Looking forward to see you. Take care, Jason. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye, Excellency.
Hello, my name is Suzi Jaffe, and I serve on AJC's Executive Council. The second half of the 20th century saw major strides in Christian-Jewish relations. What had been a centuries-long, painful history for Jews, filled with bloodshed and persecution, transformed into a warm dialogue that continues to this day. AJC was at the center of this incredible revolution. And yes, it was a revolution, working with Christian leaders who had the vision and the foresight to reject anti-Semitic teachings and attitudes that had prevailed for such a long time. Now in the 21st century, AJC has established an urgent new interreligious challenge: Muslim-Jewish relations. Again, this won't be easy, and overnight solutions are unlikely. But happily, Muslims and Jews are coming together, both at home and abroad, to work on issues of mutual concern, to dispel commonly held attitudes about one another, and to forge a path forward of peace and understanding. And once again, AJC is at the center of this unfolding change, reimagining what's possible in a Muslim-Jewish relations. Whether it's fighting hate crimes at home, bringing young Muslims and Jews together in dialogue, walking through the gates of Auschwitz shoulder to shoulder, or using the power of social media to speak directly to one another about who we are and about what we have in common, AJC is breaking down barriers and building lasting bridges. As an AJC leader, I have seen this unique, incredible work up close. Standing together with our Muslim partners, we can show the world that when you open your mind and your heart, and when you have the courage of your convictions, anything is possible.
So, who exactly are the Jews? Well, Judaism is among the oldest world faiths. Since we consider ourselves a religion, a culture, and a nation, wherever we live in the world, we feel like one big family. That's our Ummah. The Jewish story begins more than 3,000 years ago with Abraham, a monotheist in idolatrous times, who was commanded by God to leave his father's home in Mesopotamia and travel to Canaan, where God promised he will be the father of many nations.
Look toward heaven and count the stars if you are able to count them.
God told Abraham.
So shall be your offspring.
He actually only had 2 kids, but let's jump to his grandson, Jacob. Jacob, also known in the Torah as Israel, had 12 sons who eventually became 12 large tribes, collectively called the Children of Israel. After centuries of slavery, the Children of Israel were led out of Egypt by Moses, our foremost prophet. Then, Moses received the Torah on Mount Sinai. Under Joshua, Moses' heir, the Israelites defeated the local Canaanite nations and eventually created a small kingdom with its capital in Jerusalem, where King Solomon built the first temple. But the good times didn't last long. The empire split in 2, Israel in the north and Judea in the south. The Assyrians exiled the 10 northern tribes from the land of Israel, and the descendants of Judah were the last to remain. Then, the Babylonians destroyed the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, and most of them were exiled too. That's how the Children of Israel came to be known as Jews. Over 2,000 years of living in the diaspora, Jews kept Hebrew as their holy language. They developed an oral tradition, which was put in writing in the Mishnah and the Talmud. In daily life, Jews adapted to the cultures surrounding them. For example, Jews in Northern and Eastern Europe, known as Ashkenazim, shaped their culture in interaction with their Christian neighbors. They developed a Jewish language combining German, Hebrew, and Slavic languages called Yiddish. Jews lived in the Middle East since antiquity and were known as Mizrahim, meaning from the East, while those who settled after being expelled from Spain in 1492 were often called Sfaradim. These Jews spoke and wrote in Judeo-Arabic and Ladino, a Spanish Jewish language. Some ancient Jewish communities were established as far away as India and China. According to Jewish law, people born to Jewish parents are Jewish, but conversion to Judaism is allowed. Today, about 7 million Jews live in North America, almost 7 million in Israel, and 1.5 million Jews live in Europe and elsewhere across the world. Jews may look very different from one another, but we share 3 important elements. A common memory. Jews came from common ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and share a history and a destiny. A common religion. Judaism gives deep meaning to our lives. No central authority tells us how to practice, but we all base it on a common heritage in the Torah. And a connection to the land of Israel. From America to New Zealand, Jews always pray to Jerusalem and feel a deep emotional connection to the land of our ancestors. That, in a nutshell, is the story of the Jews.
Hi, I'm Saba Soomekh. I was born in Tehran, Iran. I take great pride in my family history as the Iranian Jewish community is the oldest in the diaspora. We have lived in the Persian Empire for 2,700 years. Persia was the home of King Cyrus and the prophets Ezra and Nehemiah. My paternal family is proud to be from the city of Hamadan, which is the biblical town of Shushan, Queen Esther, and Mordecai. Throughout history, we have experienced waves of acceptance and persecution under different Persian regimes. In 1978, my family realized our modern and secular country was regressing back to persecuting religious minorities under what would become the Islamic Revolution. And thus, we knew we had to flee Iran in order to live a life free of anti-Semitism. We left everything behind, our home, clothes, business, and money, and started all over again in Los Angeles in order to find refuge in a land free of religious and political persecution. I grew up attending Jewish day school, and it was in school where my love of Jewish history and my appreciation for Israel began. It continued throughout college and graduate school, where I received my PhD in religious studies and became a professor teaching religious studies, Jewish studies, and Middle Eastern history courses. My Jewish identity is made up of large Shabbat dinners with 4 generations in attendance, eating traditional Iranian Jewish cuisine, where we celebrate our history and our traditions. It is made up of my academic work as a religious studies professor, focusing on and writing about Mizrahi Jews and teaching courses on modern Israel. It is made up of advocating for global Jewry and fighting anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism through my work at AJC. Like most first-generation Americans, I have a hybrid identity. However, the most important aspect of my identity is my Jewish faith and my advocacy for Israel. I am a proud American Jew. The intersection of my Iranian, American, and Jewish identities make me particularly proud to make this exciting announcement. Building on the enormous success of AJC Arabic's social media account and the An Al-Yahud video series, one video of which we just viewed earlier in this program, AJC is continuing to reimagine what's possible in our efforts to engage as many people as we can in our messaging and in our work. As part of the next frontier of that work, at this very moment, AJC is launching AJC Farsi, Persian language social media accounts on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as part of our new effort to reach Iranians in both Iran and diaspora communities around the world. While AJC is profoundly concerned about the Iranian regime's malign nuclear activities, suppression of human rights, and sponsorship of terror around the world, we know the Iranian people are not the regime. We know the Jewish people and the Iranian people have much in common, and we know that there are Iranians who are supportive of the state of Israel. We know that through these new communication platforms, we can reach many people and create opportunities for engagement and dialogue, transmitting AJC's message of peace, friendship, and cooperation around the world to an important new audience. Our first tweet is live now. Together, let's reimagine what's possible.
If you don't already listen to American Jewish Committee's weekly podcast, People of the Pod, you are about to. Welcome to a special Global Forum edition recording live and set to air later this week. For years, many have seen the religious diversity in the Middle East as an obstacle to resolving conflict there. But American Jewish Committee's International Director of Interreligious Affairs, David Rosen, believes the contrary. the shared religious heritage embodied by the prophet Abraham should pave the way to peace. With us now to discuss how leaders have already begun to make this ideal a reality is Rabbi Rosen and Dr. Ali Rashid Al-Nuaimi, founder and chairman of the World Council of Muslim Communities. Gentlemen, welcome to People of the Pod.
Thank you, Manya.
So, Dr. Al-Nuaimi, welcome. We'll start with you. Last year, we watched the historic signing of the Abraham Accords between Israel, United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain, and soon Israel was welcoming relations with Morocco and Sudan. Some have said to expand Arab-Israeli peace in the Middle East, it's not only important for countries to normalize relations with Israel, which of course is what the Accords did, it's also important for diplomats to foster interreligious relationships in the name of Abraham. What does that mean, and why is that so important?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be part of this event and to speak to such an outstanding audience. Well, from our perspective in the UAE, we don't look at the Abraham Accord as a work of diplomat, and that it should stay within the diplomatic arena. No, in the UAE, we see that the Abraham Accord actually bring two nations together. And when I say two nations, I see that, you know, what happened actually on August 13th, that we started making history in this area, where I saw the engagement of all sectors, of all stakeholders from the UAE side and from the Israeli side, not only politicians. And this is where we see, you know, the real potential of changing the region by creating a new peace for all. So this is very important to understand it. It's not a diplomatic initiative. It's not a political initiative. It's a comprehensive, holistic initiative that will bring two nations together. And part of any nation actually is the religious community and the religious leaders. And here where we see the added value to the Abraham Accord, the real engagement of many rabbis, like my friend Rabbi Rosen, who made a great contribution actually to support this treaty, you know, to promote it, to show that they believe in it. And this is what we did also from our side.
Mm-hmm. Rabbi Rosen, it sounds like he's saying religion is always in the room. Is that what he's saying?
Yes, indeed. In fact, religion, the conflicts that have existed in the Middle East in recent history have not in themselves been religious conflicts, but they've been, if you like, weaponized by religion, and religion has been abused. And if you want to be able to overcome all the negative stigmas of the past and perceptions, you can't just ignore that. You have to make sure that if you like, you do, I don't know, I'm not an expert in karate, but something like a karate move, and you take, therefore, the negative energy and you transform it into the positive one. I think one of the mistakes of people in the past who have sought to address these issues has been precisely to look at them exclusively in terms of tangibles, as Dr. Ali was saying, in terms of diplomatic and political or territorial issues. Of course, all those are important. But there are intangibles, that's perceptions. How do we see one another? How do we perceive one another? What is our understanding of historical attachments or lack thereof on the part of the other? And therefore, we have to address these issues at the most profound level. And with, as Dr. Ali mentioned, our identities are rooted within religious traditions. And this not only affects the region here, it's globally the reality. If we are concerned to be able to ensure reconciliation and collaboration and cooperation between Islam, the Muslim world, and the Jewish people, the Jewish world, then we have to address the religious dimension and portray it as a source of brotherly, sisterly connectiveness rather than a source for division.
So was that adequately done in the Abraham Accords? I mean, was faith indeed a part of the dialogue in the region, or was it still purposefully left out? And also, let me just add to that, what is the danger of leaving that religious perspective out of the conversation?
Well, I think the UAE certainly took a lead, and Dr. Ali al-Nuaimi is an example of the leadership from that country, which already for many years has been engaged in interreligious understanding, not exclusively with the Jewish people, but also with the Jewish people and with Judaism. And I think that understanding is there more profoundly, perhaps, within the Gulf countries than it is necessarily within Israeli society. Within Israeli society, there are other problems. And that's the whole question of a relationship between religion and state, and the way, in fact, often religion is politicized. So it's not always seen as, if you like, the spiritual, moral, visionary force that it should be. But I think that there is a response to the Abraham Accords and the growing understanding of the need to be able to ensure that that added dimension is there.
Mm-hmm. Dr. al-Nuaimi, I'm curious, I just asked what's the danger of leaving the religious perspectives out of the conversation, but what are the risks of including them? And are those risks worth taking?
Well, I can comment on your first question to my brother, Rabbi Rosen, related to religion and the Abraham Accord. In our area, actually, religion was a victim. And here I'm saying all religion, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and it was abused by many politicians to use religion to serve their political agenda. And here where, it's the responsibility of religious leaders to have the courage and to come forward, and to promote the real value that we have in all these religions that will bring us together and promote, trust and love and respect between all the followers of all these religions. And coming back to your question, look, religion, either we engage religious leaders who will play a good role, in bringing the people together, bringing their heart, their mind, promoting love and peace, building bridges of respect between them, or they will play a bad role. And you see, if you ignore religion and you ignore the religious leaders, there is a role they will play, because if they have a great influence on their follower, and they preach them, they talk to them, and it's 100%. If you don't, feed them with the right things, engage them, show them their role, appreciate their contribution, they will do something else. So the engagement of religious leaders is crucial, is very important. If we want, especially when we talk about the Middle East, I said this so many times, the root of Christianity and Judaism and Islam in this area, it's not in Europe, it's not in the United States, it's not anywhere. So what you need is, you need here to, put the element and try to invest in the root, that because these religions, their root is here, try to show the world the model of that these religions, they can live together, they can, live in peace, stability, security, and prosperity for all. So it's very important to engage them. If you don't engage them, they will play a role that will damage what we all are hoping for.
Could I reiterate, if I may?
Please.
That in the past, there has been a tendency of politicians and diplomats to see, because religion is very often abused, to say, well, then we don't want to engage it because it's part of the problem. But if you don't, exactly as Dr. Ali is saying, if you don't want it to be part of the problem, you have to make it part of the solution. And nature abhors a vacuum. If you don't engage the moderate, responsible leaders, then the extremists will occupy that vacuum. And that's what happened immediately after the Oslo Accords. And I would say part of the failure there was the failure to engage the religious leadership to support those peace initiatives. Therefore, the message came across to the most devout that somehow this process was inimical to their interests, and they sought to undermine it, as was indeed the case. So that's why we have to ensure that there is the positive voice of religion, of the religious traditions, supporting those political and diplomatic initiatives.
So certainly interreligious understanding, knowing each other's values, principles, teachings, that's at the core of interreligious relations. But should successful interreligious relations, if we're going to incorporate religion into these important conversations, does it also include an understanding of stereotypes or tropes that one religious tradition or some in one religious tradition might teach about another?
Yes, indeed. I think that's critical because I think part of the problem of the past, as I say, the weaponizing of religion in a destructive way over the course of the last almost a century, has meant that young people have grown up with distorted stereotypes and misrepresentations of the other community. And if we don't address those, then we don't have a solid basis for a future relationship. And I think that was also a past failure with regards to peace initiatives in the region.
If I may say something in this regard, Myrna, I believe it's very important that we need religious leaders who have the courage to come forward and promote the great values that we have in our religion. You know, we shouldn't be hostage to the past, and we should understand that, you know, at the end, coexistence is vital for all of us, and we have to live together. So we have to look into things that bring us together. And if there is differences, we have to respect the differences and leave them aside. And, you know, as Rabbi Rosen mentioned, we have to focus on the youth and engage them on things that will bring us together. You see, in the UAE, you know, now one of our strategy and major objective is to promote coexistence. And this is why we are using religious leaders, we are using our teachers, our curriculum to engage in promoting this. So in all the school system, so the kids from, you know, early years, they will, you know, be part of this coexistent community that will respect others, you know, show love to them, believe in their contribution, and believe that they are partner, not only in human values or in the world, but in the nation that they are living within.
Mm-hmm. Are there already mechanisms in place for training rabbis, training imams there in the Middle East region that echo that emphasis on coexistence?
Well, actually, I'm engaging in many programs in training imam, actually, to counter extremism, to promote coexistence. We do all these things in the UAE, so we start doing it, you know, outside the UAE. So I was engaged in training some imam from Afghanistan, from the Maldives, from Horn of Africa, several countries. I have an initiative now to work on the Sahel area. So we are trying to focus on these hotspots where is those extremists, and to focus on those imam and engage them in a program to promote coexistence and to counter hate and extremism.
Mm-hmm.
Before addressing the Jewish community, and particularly here in Israel, let me just add to the comments regarding the Muslim world, because one of the most remarkable initiatives is in Morocco, which of course is then part of this historical process, and which has shown incredible leadership with regards to now introducing education about Jewish heritage in Morocco. But a good friend of AJC, of the American Jewish Committee, who has appeared at a number of our global fora, is Dr. Ahmed Abadi, who is the General Secretary of the Mohammedan Council of Scholars of Morocco. And when he was General Secretary of the Ministry of Religious Affairs of Morocco, he established the Institute for the Training of Imams and Women Religious Leaders, Murshidin and Murshidat. And when we had an AJC mission to Morocco, it was my privilege to be the first rabbi to address that institute there and to be able to speak about the importance of coexistence. And that institute is precisely orientated towards combating extremism and promoting a leadership, both male and female, of a new generation of Muslim leaders. Here in Israel, obviously the spectrum is enormously wide. And while there is therefore no formal program that I know of within Orthodoxy that is actually training rabbis in terms of interreligious understanding, there are definitely programs within certain Orthodox as well as definitely within the Reform and Conservative institutions that are here. But there is an Orthodox institute which actually deals generally with rabbinical graduates that is also focusing on that. And then there are lots of different interfaith initiatives, and a few institutes have just been started by an Orthodox operation in Efrat near Bethlehem. And there are therefore obviously within the universities, you also have people of religious training and roles and functions who are gaining a certain broader perspective. I think that within our society, the challenge is much more an intra-faith challenge than it is really an interfaith challenge.
Interesting. You know, when I do think about interreligious success stories, at least from a Jewish perspective, I immediately think about Nostra Aetate, the declaration by the Roman Catholic Church 56 years ago that finally removed from church doctrine the very harmful teaching of deicide, the accusation that Jews killed Jesus. What that did for the relationship between Jews and Catholics was historic and healing. Now, I'm mindful that the Muslim and Jewish worlds don't have the same hierarchy as the Catholic Church, represented by the Vatican, but how do we go about achieving historical change and healing between our communities, which are diverse, geographically scattered?
Well, engaging together, I know Rabbi Rosen, many rabbi, sitting together, engaging in dialogue, talking about the challenges, talking about the potential of working together. When we sit together, we hear about the other from them, and they hear about us from us. It's not the stereotype. So I think, having events that bring all these religious leaders together, engaging them and trying to, seeing what's the future of this area, where do we see the youth, the new generation that will happen to them related to religion from both sides. So I think, when we talk to each other, we will listen to each other, we build a relation that we do care about each other actually. And this is where you will see that, whenever you speak, you will feel that the other side, you have an open heart and open mind. But if you ignore them, that's the issue. So, sitting together, engaging in a dialogue, trying to face the challenges together, I think that will open many doors and venues for bringing us together more.
It's interesting, Manya, that you refer to Nostra Aetate and the amazing transformation in terms of Jewish-Christian relations. And there is a big difference between the history of Jewish-Christian relations and the history of Jewish-Muslim relations. I'm not saying Jewish-Muslim relations were always a picnic for everyone at every time and every place, but there is no comparison to the kind of demonization that Jews suffered under Christianity. Islam never declared that we are in league of the devil, that condemned to wander, that have denied our historical birthright and connection. No, these ideas that actually have filtered into or insinuated themselves into the Muslim world as a result of the conflict in our region, and have been simply exploited as weapons to score political points. That's precisely why it's so much easier to be able to advance the Jewish-Muslim relationship once we actually are able to overcome those immediate diplomatic political barriers, because we actually have so much more in common. Our way of life, our teachings have so many parallels. And indeed, there were periods, of course, under Islam where Judaism flourished. And we all point back to the famous golden age of Spain, where there was all cross-fertilization between Muslims, Christians, and Jews together. But it was primarily under Muslim rule, not exclusively, but primarily. So the potential is enormous and is great and can be far more rapid, I think. We see many initiatives from the UAE. There is the Forum for the Promotion of Peace in Muslim Lands, which is now promoting peace in the world under the leadership of Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayer, who is arguably one of the most important voices reflecting, if you like, a moderate Islamic approach, I would say the most noble values of Islam. You know that we, AJC, have a special relationship with Dr. Muhammad Abdul Karim Al-Isa of the Muslim World League, and of the visit that we were privileged to organize, taking him and Muslim leaders to Auschwitz just over a year ago, and his very important statements. And we have therefore developed programs in that regard. In a way, these demonstrations, precisely as Dr. Ali was mentioning, of joint initiatives and collaboration and cooperation are more powerful than anyone coming along and saying, making a particular exclusive declaration, because it's precisely showing that friendship and collaboration, and it's increasing. And that's why these interfaith initiatives are so important to be able to sustain, to ensure that we are able to capitalize upon what we've done in the past.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you mentioned the trip to Auschwitz, because it sounds like that kind of shared experience can have a broader impact and can serve as a model for what else is possible.
Yes, indeed. And I got enormous responses from around the world to that. Mm-hmm. And I think it is important both in terms of educating people about Jewish history, but it's above all a testimony to mutual respect. Mm-hmm. And an understanding. There's a very famous Hasidic story. I won't tell you the whole story, but the bottom line is that if we don't understand what gives one another pain, then we cannot truly love one another. And that, I think, is also what Dr. Ali was saying.
I agree 100%. Well, Manya, unfortunately, we had the Abraham Accord during COVID-19. If we didn't have the restriction of COVID-19, you will see, so many events engaging religious leaders related to this initiative, actually. So, and I am sure that once all these restrictions are over, you will see many events either in the UAE or in Israel that will bring religious leaders, not only from the two nations, but from the whole region, actually. And that will promote the Abraham Accord, and also will show the added value of peace, to everyone.
Yes, and the added value of travel, which we all miss and will welcome when the time comes. On that note, we will end. Dr. Al-Nuaimi, Rabbi Rosen, thank you for sharing your very hopeful perspectives with us. And if you would like to subscribe to our podcast, get out your cell phone and text AJC space podcast to 52886. That's AJC podcast, 2 words, to 52886. Thank you for attending AJC Virtual Global Forum. And thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay safe.
Yes, you as well.
What a remarkable discussion. After a period where we've all been grieving the fighting and loss of life in the recent conflict between Israel and Hamas, it is refreshing to hear a message of hope for the region and its future. Before I came to AJC to build bridges between Jews and Muslims, I trained as a historian of Muslim-Jewish relations. And I can tell you that over the centuries, our communities have known periods of flourishing and productive symbiosis on the one hand, and on the other hand, sadly, other times of interreligious antagonism and violence. However, as you've seen throughout today's program, we are living in unprecedented times. The relationship between the Jewish people and the Muslim and Arab worlds is changing fast, and we have a unique opportunity to reimagine what's possible. Through diplomacy, interreligious engagement, and social media outreach, AJC is forging alliances with those who share our vision for a world in which Muslims and Jews work in concert for the benefit of all peoples. No doubt there are naysayers who wish to portray the strife between Israel and Palestinians as a fundamental religious conflict between Jews and Muslims, one with no hope of resolution. But my friends, we cannot allow that voice of division to prevail or to dictate our relationship with one another. There is a groundswell of curiosity about Jews and Judaism emerging across the Muslim world, and we must empower the many people who are seeking out an authentic Jewish voice. It's for that reason that today AJC is proud to announce a grand-scale initiative to meet that growing demand. The Children of Abraham Project will make available in-depth and reliable knowledge about Judaism and the Jewish people to more than half of the world's 1.8 billion Muslims. In 2001, AJC commissioned Reuven Firestone, a renowned rabbi and scholar of Islam, to write a groundbreaking book introducing Judaism to a Muslim audience, Children of Abraham. This volume will now evolve to reflect the changes in Jewish life and Muslim-Jewish relations of the past decades. More importantly, we will translate the updated book from English into Arabic, Indonesian, Persian, Urdu, Turkish, and Bengali, an unparalleled undertaking. And we will make Children of Abraham freely available as a digital book to students, scholars, religious leaders, and everyday citizens alike across the Muslim world to correct misconceptions, dissolve suspicion, and upend stereotypes about the Jewish people. Hundreds of millions of Arabs will be able to read Dharyat Ibrahim, and Indonesia's 230 million Muslims will now have access to Keturunan Ibrahim. In India and Pakistan, our Urdu version, Abrahim Ki Ulad, will open new doors for partnership. And in Iran and beyond, Persian-speaking Muslims will learn from Farzandan Ibrahim. 164 million Muslims of Bangladesh can know more about us through Ibrahimera Santana. And likewise, Ibrahimin Çocukları will be available for free to 75 million Turkish-speaking Muslims. The Children of Abraham Project will become an indispensable resource and serves as a deep expression of AJC's commitment to transforming Muslim-Jewish relations in the 21st century. Thank you.